Welcome guys back to Meet the HR show. My name is Sylvia Wanja. Remember, we are having Mr. Willard in the house to give us more information on what CBC entails and matters CBC. Mr. Willard,
yes,
tell us more about CBC. Do you think that so far are we executing it in the way that it's supposed to?
Well, it's always good to give credit where it belongs, and so far I can say we have made quite a good step in as far as provision of resources is concerned. I know we are constrained by those factors, resources, availability, and when you talk about resources, I'm referring to both human resource and materials related. But the government has been on the forefront trying to ensure that we are having enough books in the schools. We are also having enough teachers. I'm sure the government currently is working on a program on how we can recruit more teachers so that they can take over some of the aspects. And of course, having gone through the first cycle of it, there have been recommendations which have been given by the Presidential Working Party Task Force on some of the changes that needs to be done. And so once these changes are done, I believe most of the recommendations came from people who are keen and interested with education. And so once these changes have been implemented, then it means we'll be having a more robust education system that's likely to change our entire perception about education in Kenya. In as far as execution is concerned, I want to say for sure there's something to applaud. And also there are a few hiccups here and there that, of course, with time, we are likely to address. It's a new baby in the block. We need to train them on how to take the baby steps until we get where we are supposed to be with the CBC.
So a little while before we started off camera, you talked about training teachers on more about CBC. And how are the teachers taking the training? Are they open to it? Are they still rigid? See, bado tumebaki na 844, like we don't want new things. So how is it with the teachers?
Well, I'll say for sure CBC is more of a hands-on learning or education system.
Yes.
And so at some point, just as a normal human process, we are always not so ready to take change. There are different cycles of change because change in itself is a destabilizing factor. You could be at your comfort zone. I've gotten the hang of 844 and now here you come with a CBC. It's like you're throwing me back to the learning curve. And so I know a few teachers have already taken the competitive edge of self-educating, attending seminars with those that are being provided by the government, trainings and all that. And so this has made quite a good number of them to make strides. But I think at some point it becomes also a discouragement because training of a new education system should be an ongoing process. It's not a one-time thing and then you go execute. And so to some level I feel like yes, there are a few teachers who are challenged because there are always those who will take the competitive edge and get themselves to where they are supposed to be. And there are those who might need some hand-holding until you get them to a place where they are supposed to be. But a good number are now embracing. Initially, it was like CBC is likely to be toppled off, and rather it can also be sustained. But now that we've gotten to a point where the government has upheld it, then it means there's no otherwise but to learn more about CBC. And I've seen more teachers throwing themselves into different learning institutions and trying to just self-educate and seek for trainings to help themselves get better. So teachers are doing a good job out here.
And with the CBC, you've talked about there was a time whereby people wanted it scrapped off. They felt like we are not ready as a nation to take on such a system. A lot of hands-on, a lot of resources. And what do you think about schools that they don't have access, parents who don't have access to these materials that are needed? What can be done to help them so that they can get into the CBC system better?
Wow, that's interesting because if you look at CBC, every time there's a practical lesson that needs to be covered, the recommendation has always been use locally available materials. What does that mean? It means that you survey your environment and see, is there anything that you can use to execute that project that needs to be executed? For instance, if you've been requested in music as an assignment to make a musical headgear or a folk song headgear, you just look around the cartons that you have there, the chicken feathers and all that. I I'm very sure that might not be as costly as what someone would prefer to go to a market and purchase a headgear.
Yeah.
So when we look at it from that perspective, then we begin to see it's not as costly as we say. Of course, there are other cost implications. For instance, the number of learning areas increased from 5 that we are used to in the 844 to around 7, 8 in grade 3, 1 to 3, and around 12 in grade 4 all the way to grade 7. Think of 14 learning areas in grade 7 to grade 9. And so this, of course, increases the cost, and the purchasing power of a parent might be so limited by their financial ability.
Yeah.
And so that is costly in its sense. But when the government chips in terms of provision of some of these learning resources, and of course with the recommendations on reducing the number of subjects, I believe these are things that are likely to be looked into. Part of also the recommendation that has been given to the government is reviewing the school financing model. So when this financing model has been reviewed, then it means the amount of money that will be going to learning institutions will be enough to facilitate the learning process. However, the general notion around CBC being expensive cannot be dispelled. It's true, there are aspects that really require a lot of input, some of which will translate to monetary input, but as time goes by, you begin to realize if we make use of what is locally available, then we use our creativity to make CBC cheap. So the motivation I would have for teachers outside there is insist on the locally available materials. Even when you give students a task, don't go for the purchased ones. Just go for what is locally available and make sure that it is being transformed into something that is unique and presentable to the rest of the class. Yes.
You know, Mr. Willard, I remember when CBC was starting, there was a lot of uproar online. People were really discussing it. We were seeing children carrying chicken to school, each and every person, and it was just a laughing stock, and everyone was like, what system is this are you guys introducing? But right now, people are beginning to appreciate it more. It's a slow, gradual change, and we are hoping that it'll get better over time.
Yes.
Now, what do you say is the future of CBC in this country?
Well, the fact that I have a personal affiliation to what CBC is trying to achieve. From my standing point, I would say the future is optimistic. It's promising.
Yeah.
It is promising, and that can only come to the light of the day if those who are the key stakeholders, thinking about the parents, the students, the Ministry of Education, of course, the churches, and also the community, plays a key role in ensuring that CBC is sustained and it's maintained to where it's supposed to get. And so for me, I'm optimistic. It's getting us somewhere. It will get us to where we want to be in the 21st century as a country. All we need to do is all of us fold our sleeves and get into the actual implementation. What that means is like it won't be perfect completely, but those areas that we feel there is something we can tweak, like what the government has done with the task force recommendation, we just step into it and ensure that we are bringing those changes instantly, so that the future of it is guaranteed. Yeah.
Now, what word of advice would you give to people who don't feel like CBC is working and we should just do away with it, scrap it off, put it to the side? Especially parents. Because they call a lot of the shots.
Expensive system.
Yes.
I mean, let's not throw the baby with the water bath. The one thing I know for sure is CBC is very, very strategic as of this time, considering where the global is shifting towards. We have things like digital literacy in CBC. We have things like self-efficacy. We think of collaboration. We think of communication. These are the things that makes a competent, not only employee, but an entrepreneur in this 21st century. So beyond the cost that we might pay right now to implement it, I would request that we look at the future returns. So the rate of investment, will it be equally or directly proportional to the rate of return, rate of returns, So what you're investing right now, it might be painful, even when you're going to the farm sowing. It's not such an easy and interesting thing to do. But tomorrow when you're walking into the barns or the granaries to get what you had harvested to eat, actually you feel the pleasure and satisfaction that comes with that. So let's give it a chance. I'm very sure most parents, if you try and search and look around, you realize there are things you can use within your environment to make sure that you're achieving this CBC thing. So let's be hopeful, let's support where we can support. I'm very sure with the support of all these stakeholders, CBC has a future. Yes.
Guys, I hope you can hear this. Parents at home, this is a call to you to embrace the CBC system. It's the next thing, the next big thing that will help your child when they get out into the job market. Right now, white-collar jobs are not everything. Actually, you've seen people from blue-collar with blue-collar jobs doing better than the ones in white-collar jobs. But again, it all depends on what your child likes and what they want to pursue further. Now, I was curious about this particular thing. The teachers who are there before, they didn't get to learn more about this system. How are they catching on with the system? Are they going back to school, or what is happening?
Well, the initial phase of trying to retool, we usually call retooling, was the ministry provided some trainings for the teachers. And these trainings actually helped the teachers to get apprised with the very basic starting points of CBC. Now, as we are continually going on, part of the recommendations that have been given forth will include things like retraining teachers. And so the ministry is likely to get into, gearing towards a place where they will begin to look at it as a mandate that schools have teachers that are being trained. The current teacher training colleges are also being equipped to be able to produce teachers from the year 2023, 2024 who are already CBC aware. Those who have been taken through the process and they know how to execute it. So for the teachers who were there before, that continuous training, like for our institution here, we do a lot of continuous training in order to appraise our teachers. There are always resources outside there which can always be taken advantage of in terms of internet and all that.
Now, as we're coming to the end of the show, now I would like you to give a word of advice to someone who wants to pursue being an educator. We call it an educator, guys, not a teacher. So for someone who wants to be an educator, and obviously they're going to come and find this CBC curriculum in place, what word of advice would you give them using that camera right there?
Well, my take is passion. Passion informs your progress. If you truly have passion for the children, you'll send yourself outside there to explore more opportunities on how you can be an effective educator. And so an effective educator is the one who is constantly looking for the trends and the new developments in the particular field that they are in. And so if your passion is with working with the kids or even teaching at the university level or the high school level, make sure that you are constantly updating yourself with the trends and the information that is out there. And the easiest thing I can tell you, make good use of the internet. There's a lot of new information that you can learn from there, which will make you to be a competent and an excellent executor in the educational space.
That's it here at Meet the HR. I hope you have learned something about the CBC system, and I hope you've learned something from Mr. Willard. It was very, very insightful. It will be such a shame come on, walk out of here without having that knowledge that we have just shared. And if you have missed this particular episode, unaweza ipata pale kwa MBCI TV official YouTube under the playlist Meet the HR. And remember, here at Meet the HR show, we say there is no luck in career, but it's when opportunity meets preparation. My name is Sylvia Wanja. See you guys next week, same place, same time on your favorite TV station, MBCI TV. Keep it locked. Bye.